Bonislawski.
I suppose I should start with thanking all of you for being here and coming to this really, really great event. Part of it for me too is a great honor because both my father and all my brothers are veterans. So to be here in their memory is really special. I thank you all for that. This is what the tall hat is for. What I decided to talk about was basically the Boston Tea Party, and it's really part of our culture. It's part of our society at this point. Everyone has heard of the Boston Tea Party, but what does it mean? Why is it important? What do we even care about it for? Well, there are several key reasons why it's important. If I was to say to you, tea, how does that make you feel? What if I said, tea? Does it make you feel any different? Do you know what led to a revolution? Right? Well, this seemingly insignificant herb, really, wrote James McGregor and Susan Dunn. They were writing a biography of George Washington. And that's how they started. They said it's this insignificant beverage. Well, then you have to understand and look at what it did. Tea is really a very slight, it's very paltry, small, dried leaves that colors hot water, right? And it was, the British had instituted a 3-penny tax, right? Most colonists were happy to pay it. There was no issue. They all drank tea. What's 3 more cents? They would have, especially in Boston, they would have been happy to pay it. But you see, there's a problem, because this 3-penny tax doesn't come from the General Court of Massachusetts. It comes from a parliament 3,000 miles away. And they're reaching into our lives, into our money, and taking this from us. That's how they saw it. The 3 pennies, the tea, all that's insignificant. So, but it does become a problem, because you see, freedom for the colonists was not an abstract concept. It was very real to them. They understood what freedom was. Now, maybe some of you aren't aware of this, but they did believe that it violated their right to be taxed by their own elected representatives. And if you were in the city, if you were a merchant in the city, or if you were a farmer out in the countryside, you understood that. You knew that. So right away we try to think of, oh, well, there's John Adams, there's Thomas Jefferson, there's George Washington. No, these people they knew. They were savvy enough to know what was happening to them. So on December 16th, 1773, at a crowded meeting at one of the largest Boston churches, when it ended, the colonists decided, let's march down to the water's edge, to Griffin's Wharf, where the 3 ships laid waiting. And they staged an act of rebellion that was going to have worldwide significance. They may not have seen that part, but it clearly was headed there. At this point, the story of the Boston Tea Party is well known. This is from Benjamin Carp in his book Defiance of the Patriots. He tells the story this way. He says, and I quote, about 100 men boarded the 3 trading ships that were riding at Griffin's Wharf in Boston Harbor. They hoisted the 340 chests onto the deck, and these chests contained more than 46 tons of tea. Now, in today's money, that's about 15, maybe $16 million. So this is a major act. This isn't just simple defiance, right? And they smashed open the chest, and these men remembered what principles were at stake. They dumped the tea into the salt water below. I mean, that's the standard story. But who were these men? Does anyone know who they were? John Adams wasn't there, right? Jefferson, all those other men that end up writing the Constitution, that's not who was there. The people that were there were merchants, they were craftsmen, there were apprentices, there were farm laborers, and there were men who worked on those very docks. That's who does the Boston Tea Party. The younger boys, of course, they're thrilled. You know, this is a night of mischief where they could run around and act wild, and nobody would stop them, right? But for the rest of these grown men that were there, they believed they had embarked on a noble deed of patriotic virtue. They were gripped by what they were doing. They may not have said it, they may not have written about it, but they were. Just from the letters they leave us, we get a sense that they knew what they were doing. And to almost to a man, to the very last man, they would not tell anyone who was with them. They refused to give up the names of the other people when the British regulars came and tried to arrest them. So on the evening of December 16th, they spoke for all the rebels in Boston who had a complaint against the policies of the British government. The Boston Tea Party wasn't a rebellion. It wasn't even a protest against the Crown. But it set in motion a series of events that did lead to open revolt against the British Crown, of course. The destruction of the tea, which became known as the Boston Tea Party, some 50 years later, they didn't even give it that name when they did it. It becomes Boston Tea Party later. And it was actually a bold, defiant act of political mobilization. That's what it was. Why had these Boston citizens who chose to dump the tea on that particular night? Why did they do it then? What was so important about it? Who cares if they throw tea into the harbor? Right? Wouldn't they just be thought of as nuts? You know? Well, the tea, of course, would now be unavailable for sale. Right? They had till midnight. Once midnight came, the British agents, customs agents, were going to seize the tea and they were going to start selling it throughout the colony. They couldn't allow that. They begged the ship's captains to take the tea back to them. But they wouldn't do it. The ships were in the harbor. They signed for it. It's the merchants. It's not us.